around closets? No. You know, it has to be the right kind of a day, doesn't it? Maybe like a rainy day or a cloudy day, and I can't wait to get at a closet. And oftentimes, I don't even know what's in it. So, it happened to me just last week when I said, it's just that perfect kind of day. I'm going to look in this closet and clean it. Well, the first thing I noticed was that there was a huge box in there, probably about like that. And I thought, I should know what's in that box. This is my closet, but I can't remember. So it's going to be a surprise. And this box was really pretty. I bought one that was all decorated. Must have been a long time ago because I don't remember. But anyway, very sturdy. And when I lifted it out, it was rather heavy. I take off the cover, and what do you suppose is in it? Hundreds of pictures. Pictures. I mean, you think a box like that, imagine how many pictures are in that box. And so I thought, you know, there's probably 100 years worth of people's experiences in this box. Because when two people get married, they bring photos from their families. And so that's many, many, many generations. So as I just picked up one from underneath, I wonder who that is. I don't even know. And I realized that people then didn't dress so nicely like we do now either. Oh my, that was dull. Oh, black and, oh, well, I'm so glad I'm living now. So anyway, I'm looking through this box and seeing a younger me and thinking to myself, what did I know then? Not much of anything. Really. That I was not ready for life in any way. Of course, are we ever ready for the things that happen? I don't know. I looked at pictures of our children and thought, were we ready to have those children? Well, maybe not. You know, I think it was Will Rogers who said, if you're going to wait until you're ready, then you'll wait forever. Well, I'm glad that we didn't wait until we were ready to have the children because they are such a blessing. But as I looked at pictures of me, I began to think that people change so drastically. I have, and I hope I keep changing. Because I used to think that I had no control in this life at all, that I was like a cork, kind of tossed around on the sea of life, and the winds would just come and sweep me wherever they would, and that's where I landed. And I didn't know how to deal with life. I didn't know how to choose to actually live. Oh, I was existing, I was breathing, and do you know that this tells you a little bit about the awareness that I had, the low level of awareness. Even when I got married, I thought that I was here to be entertained. I soon found out that's not the way it works. And gradually I began to see that there was a different way. I also began to see that I had to look at what was going on with me. I had to be really honest about that because somehow I had the idea that problems in my life, if I just shove them away, they'll disappear. If I ignore them, they'll go away. Well, that doesn't happen either. So I recently read an article about the wind. And on a windy day, what happens? Well, it was a windy day yesterday, not quite so windy as we have had in the past when I have actually stepped outside and been, whoa, you could almost fall over. And that's what the wind will do to us. So if we look at this metaphorically, this article said that when we are walking into the wind, we automatically lean into the wind to keep from falling over so that we can keep our balance. And so if we look at that in a metaphorical way, we see that the wind could represent all those windy days in our lives when we seem to be out of kilter, when we seem to have problems that pop up and we don't know what to do with them. can think of a lot of things that the wind would suggest. You know, even on a windy day, sometimes we feel just a little bit off, don't we? It's a very strange feeling to me. But here we are then in the problems of life, and I think that we need to look at them. Look at my life and see what's going on with it. It was Fritz Perls, that great psychotherapist, who said, until we accept where we are, right at this moment, right now, until we accept and look at ourselves honestly, we cannot even begin to change. And there was something in me that wanted to change. I found unity. And I can tell you that unity saved my life, truly. Because I went from this person who had no perspective at all about what life was about. And I went from that to knowing that I could choose to live in a different way. I keep learning. You know, somebody said once that unity was too shallow. Shallow? Unity to me is like a swimming pool. You can dangle your feet in the water at the shallow end if you want, but there's a deep end to it. And we have a choice if we're going to dive into that deep end or not. Well, I'm diving because there's a lot that I want to know, I still need to know. It was a long time ago that I heard this statement in unity. You can't stop the birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from making a nest in your hair. And what that says to me is, I can't stop life from happening. I can't stop all these changes that are coming to me, but I can choose how I am going to meet those changes. And that's what unity teaches me. Yesterday, we went to a memorial service for a very dear friend. And as I listened to her children talk about her, I began to see a woman, even if she was a dear friend, I thought I knew her, but I began to see even another side of her that came from her children. They loved her so much because she was an example for them. And as one of them said, she ran a tight ship. She was very particular about how they were going to behave, how they were going to present themselves in public and to other people. Very fussy even about the words that they used. She didn't want to hear any words that weren't quite right. Well, I left there asking myself some questions. What kind of mother was I? Did I do the best I could do? And I have to say, yes, I did, because that was the awareness I had. I lived out of my awareness, as we all do. But now going forward, can I be a better mother? Can I do things differently? Can I choose to live more fully as this woman did? The storms of life hit her quite hard. But she always chose to have a smile on her face. She always chose to be that person that was an example for others. Her children found in one of her purses this fortune that came from a cookie. And it said, it's our attitude, not our aptitude, that determines our altitude. Now you have to think about that a little bit. It's our attitude, how we face things in life, not our aptitude, not our capability of learning, how smart we are. It's not that, but it's the attitude that determines the altitude. How high we are thinking in this life. Carl Jung very famous psychologist. He said we have two sides to our personality. We have this lower part that gets lost in the storms of life, that lets the wind blow us over. And then we have a higher part to our personality, and it's almost as if we can go to the top of a mountain. So we have a higher perspective, and we can see the storm. Oh, the intensity of it is still there, but the difference is we're not in it. We're looking at it from a higher perspective. What a difference that makes. Now, some people would call that positive thinking. And I suppose that you could say we teach positive thinking here, but somehow that irritates me. Because positive thinking isn't enough. There's something else. It seems like positive thinking is too shallow. That really is shallow to me. When people say, when they are trying to listen maybe to what you are trying to say and you're trying to tell them something about what's going on in your life, oh, just think positively. Isn't that irritating? Yeah. So on Thursday morning, we were listening to NPR. And Carrie, is that her name? Carrie Miller. She's a wonderful interviewer. And she had on a man by the name of Oliver somebody or other. Well, somebody or other isn't his name, but that I can't remember his name. So we'll just call him Oliver the author. And he has written a book called Happiness for Those Who Can't Stand Positive Thinking. So right away, I'm listening. And he had some very good points. That it is too shallow. There doesn't seem to be any foundation to it. And I truly believe that if we are going to tell somebody to think positively, we better be able to tell them something else. There has to be something meaty to it, something of a body, some support, something that is substantial. And one piece of that foundation, I think we already talked about, or I did, that when I came to Unity, I found out I do need to look at myself. I do need to be honest. I do need to accept myself right where I am, because that's my starting place. So that might be part of that foundation, but there's something, there's still more. So the interviewer was talking to Oliver, the author, and asking him, well, you must have interviewed a lot of people yourself. And he said, oh, yes, I have. In fact, I went to see Eckhart Tolle. And he said, I was so amazed. This man who appears to be so modest and who lives in a very modest apartment is so wise. And so he said, I asked Eckhart, well, to be happy, to live fully, what would you say? And he said, we must live in the now. Because the now is the only moment we have. It's the only moment we'll ever have. But many times people live in the future and they live in the past. Oh, we have to live now. Oh, that was good. That was very good. And all the people who called in on that program, they all said wonderful things. And when the program was over, I thought, but I'm still not satisfied. There's still something missing. So I sat down, closed my eyes, and just thought. And it came to me. Everything that those people talked about was something that they could do in the outer world. Doing, doing, doing. As human beings, we are often human doings. There was not one word from anybody that talked about being, going within. Now, I do believe if the author, Oliver, had talked with Eckhart, maybe more at length or more at depth, he would have gotten to that, because certainly Eckhart knows that. It's in his books. But maybe the author didn't understand that. I don't know. Where do you and I go for depth? Where do we go for an authority that tells us to go with them? I'm going to say the Bible. There are simple stories in the Bible that we can take literally. Well, let's not. Because, you know, when it comes right down to it, do we really care what happened 2,000 years ago? If we can't relate that to ourselves, what value is it? And so a simple little story, and it made me laugh when, Dennis, when you were singing and you had the Sea of Galilee on your face. I don't know if you knew that. Because this story takes place on the Sea of Galilee. And that sea was known for sudden squalls, very intensive storms that could just kick up like that. And they were strong enough so they could capsize a pretty good sized boat. So here Jesus and the disciples then, they are in this boat, and Jesus is sleeping. The Bible says he is weary. I love that, because it tells me that Jesus is like me, or I'm like him. He's a human being. He got weary. And so he's sleeping, and here comes this intense storm. And the disciples are frightened. They're probably bailing water because the boat is sinking. And so they wake him up, and they say, "Don't you even care that we're perishing?" He doesn't even respond to that question. He wakes up, and he stills the waves, calms the storm. Peace, be still. That's what he said. Now, whether you believe that happened or not, it doesn't matter. The disciples looked at him in awe and said, "What kind of man is this, that the winds and the waves obey him?" Whenever we read about Jesus in the Bible, he represents that Christ Spirit, that God Spirit within every one of us. And I can say that because his main teaching was the kingdom of God within every one of us. And so he represents that power that we all have. That makes us spiritual beings. You and I have power that we know nothing of. Or if we know it, we don't use it. And so that same question that the disciples asked, "Who is this?" We could ask that of ourselves. Who am I? Who am I really? Am I this poor little human being tossed around like this cork on the sea of life? No, I'm not that. I am a spiritual being. The disciples, they represent our humanness that gets very frightened. And the humanness of us that goes immediately to the outside world and starts trying to fix things. But whenever we call on the Christ, there is a calmness that takes place. You know this yourself. I know you do, because whenever we pray, meditate, go into the quiet, there's a peace that comes to us. Where does it come from? Nobody can explain this, and yet it's there. It's there. This is such a simple, simple story, and yet it tells us that the power is within. And we need to claim it. We need to let it help us. We look at the Bible in many different ways. And we look at the New Testament, and often we think, well, that's all about Jesus, and that's all good stuff. But I like to look at the Old Testament too, and especially the Psalms. David sings a song, the 139th Psalm, and in it he is singing, I am awesomely and magnificently made. Thy works are wondrous. You know, it was years ago when we used to call people, well, she's a real piece of work. You ever said that about anybody? Oh, no, we wouldn't say that about anybody here. But I know, I heard it plenty. Yeah, she's a real piece of work. Well, actually, David is calling us all a piece of work, but a wondrous piece of work. And there's more to that psalm that says, as he was singing, I am awesomely and magnificently made, and my soul knoweth it right well. My soul knows it. My being knows that I am wondrously made. And so I say, thank you, Spirit. You did a great job when you made me. Thank you. And now it's up to me to choose to live life fully from what I've been given, so that I can say, I am this radiant expression of God in this world. It's what I'm here to do and to be. The poets know it too. They they speak about this great truth. It was Robert Browning. Truth is within ourselves. It takes no rise from outer things, whate'er you may believe. There is an inmost center in us all where truth abides in fullness. In fullness. And then he goes on to say, and I paraphrase, that most of the time we think that there is a light out there and we have to somehow let it in. But that isn't the way it is. He said, instead, there is an imprisoned splendor within you. And you have to create an opening so that that imprisoned splendor, that light can escape. Truth is within. There's the missing piece to me. And so when we take ourselves in the quiet, I think that's a very important thing to do every day. Take yourself into the quiet. And I had someone say to me, well, how do I do that? You know, I'm working and I work a lot every day. Well, I'll tell you, the bathroom stall is okay. You can go there. And you can be alone. You can close your eyes. You can breathe. There is this space that we somehow visualize within us. Keep breathing into that space. Keep breathing into it until you get the sense that this space is more than just within me. This is a quiet energy. It's a stillness, but it's not just in me. It's in everything. It's in every tree, every rock, every mountain, river, every blade of grass. This same energy. Keep breathing until you feel that you are one with all of it. Let it fill you. That's the answer. That's the truth. Do you realize that you and I carry around the most profound energy that there is? And we carry it with us every day. Every minute of the day. And it's the last place that we often think to look within ourselves, and yet it should be the first place. Look within. That's where you will find the truth. And you will know that you are awesomely and magnificently made. It's true of all of us. Now let's go out and live that way.